Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Dog Walk, the almost daily show. Uncut, unedited, one take, where I take out my dogs, usually. Fortunately, it's too cold again today, so it's only Mystra. Daisy won't be joining us. And I use this time to discuss whatever's been on my mind for that day. But unfortunately, since I ramble so much, I tend to get to say about 50% of what I wanted to say, maybe 25% of the time. Today, I'm gonna try to jump straight into the topic because it's really cold. It's actually not that cold, but it's super windy. And Mystra, what are you eating on the street? Yeah. But yeah, it's super windy. The wind is really chilly. And I'm gonna talk about what I think is a very controversial topic. But I feel like I don't have too much to say about it. So hopefully I'll keep it short. Although I did say that same thing yesterday, I think it ended up being a 43-minute video, so let's take that with a grain of salt. Anyway, what I want to talk about today is privilege. I will say a little bit about myself. Insofar as, for those who haven't seen any of these episodes before, you may not know, I am a straight white male. Therefore, according to most of the rest of the Western world, I guess that means that I am the enemy. Even though that's not how I see myself, I've been grouped in and labeled and painted as the oppressor, and that means that apparently, because of that, whatever I have to say holds no weight whatsoever and must come from a place of hatred that's unrelatable or something like that. I don't quite get it what these woke warriors are trying to do, because I don't think that it's true that everyone is like that, and I'm gonna try to convince you of that. What I will try to do is I will start by going through what are probably going to be the most controversial points or statements that I have to make, and then I'm gonna move towards more of a call to action for those people like me who are, supposedly privileged, and a bit of how I think the world should act, how those with privilege should act. So, I guess another thing that I will say about me, which goes into my first point of the more controversial things I have to say, is that I may not have mentioned in previous videos. Well, I did mention that I have a young son. He turned 6 months this week. But what I don't think I've ever said is that my spouse is actually Chinese, born in China, and who came to Canada back in 2016. So that would be not quite 8 years ago now that she came here. Which also means that my son is not a white male, right? He's half Chinese, half French Canadian. You could argue that as a French Canadian, that's partly makes me a minority, but hopefully my English is good enough that you'll see that you'll understand that really hasn't affected my life that negatively. So now on to the controversial points I want to make. I really think that, first of all, people need to stop painting every single person that has a discriminator from them that makes them, in their mind, a little bit higher on the social ladder, all of them with the same brush, right? What I mean by that is not every single white person is the same. Not every single man is the same, as related to a woman, obviously. Not every single cisgendered person is the same related to trans people. Not every single straight person is the same related to gay people, homosexual. I'm not quite sure what the term I'm supposed to use. And you need to realize that you people who feel like you are in the minority that is disadvantaged, you need to kind of grow up and stop bitching about it. Like, I don't know how else to say it in a less blunt manner. You need to grow up, stop bitching about it, and start to work towards gaining whatever privilege that you think that I have over you. And you need to stop using that supposed privilege as an excuse as to why you fail and why I succeed. The best example I can give of that actually is my spouse. She was born as a woman in China during the one-child policy era. Back in the 90s, as anyone should know, if they know a little bit about the world, that's another problem that most of these people in general have. People aren't informed enough about the world, so they make snap judgments and overgeneralizations and focus on a single discriminator as opposed to focusing on what they have in common with everyone else. I know I've talked about that before, but I'm sure that no one here would think that my spouse was born in a really advantaged position. If you remember, back in the 90s, China was not the world power that it is today. Was a very poor country. They had, a lot of problems. She wasn't born in a privileged position. Yet, because of her attitude and because she was instilled with the right values by her parents, and because she put in the effort, she was able to, quote unquote, dig herself out of her situation, make it to a great university in China, work hard enough there to be able to leverage that into coming to Canada as a master's student at Queen's University, and she ended up succeeding in getting her master's degree in biomechanical engineering, and now she lives in Canada. One would argue perhaps that with the way the world is going, maybe that wasn't the right move, because China is on the rise and America is on the decline, because in America, in this world where of freedom and liberty and individualism, everyone feels entitled to what others have earned. She worked for what she got, and she got there. She is a success story. So she really is the best example that I can give, from my position at least, of what I am trying to say. I think that it's so easy, it's too easy for someone who has any discriminator that they feel is a disadvantage, whether it's a physical handicap, or the color of their skin, or the language that they speak, or their gender, whatever it is, right? People, instead of figuring out a way to overcome this, people use it as an excuse to sort of give up, or to, quote unquote, accept their fate in life. And I think that is completely the wrong attitude. Furthermore, people take that as a reason or justification to lump in, like I said, everyone else from the other group. And it's not like I chose to be born as a straight white male in Canada. That just like my spouse didn't choose to be born as a straight woman in China. But so I didn't choose this. So why is it my fault that I was able to make something of myself? And I could argue that everyone has disadvantages if you actually get to know them as an individual as opposed to lumping them in a category. For example, I think I've spoken a lot about my achievements in other videos, so I don't want to go through that. But big disadvantage for me is that I am short. I'm just somewhere between 5'5" and 5'6", and anyone who lives in the modern world and who has dealt with any women, whether it's online or in person, knows that being short is a death sentence. And it's not like that's something that I can choose to do anything about, right? A lot of people will say, oh, I'm fat, I'm this, I'm that. Well, if you're fat, you can change your eating habits. You can start to work out. You can change that. It takes willpower. It takes effort, which is my entire point to do it. But you can change that. No matter what I do, I can't change my height. I'm at a huge disadvantage because of that. Or another example, I even if I wanted to, I couldn't have been a pilot in the Canadian Armed Forces because my vision at the time wasn't a perfect vision, and that was a requirement. So I had to go down a different path, and I made the most of it. I definitely am, well, okay, I won't talk about my career as an aerospace engineer, but still, I made the best of it. So my first point is stop using your whatever you think is your disadvantage as an excuse to give up or as an excuse to rage against the machine and blame others that don't have that disadvantage in your eyes. And I'm sorry to say, but in my world, there's probably there is a disproportionate amount of people who are from other skin colors, other countries, women, etc., compared to what I would expect. And that's because the people who made it there are the people who actually worked for it. So start by working for your privilege. Also, that means working over the long term to better your situation. I've talked about this in several other videos. I think I'll try to put a card to one of them. But point is that things are changing in our society. Things are changing everywhere, and there's more and more, interracial couples, acceptance of different lifestyles, all of that stuff, right? Things are changing. So just be patient, continue to work for it. It's not realistic to expect everyone to be at the top and everyone to be equal. What should be expected, what should be your goal, is to make your situation better over time, or more, actually, to make your children's life better than yours was. And that requires work, effort, and sacrifice. That requires you to maybe not spend $5,000 to go see the Super Bowl just because Taylor Swift is there. Maybe not buy the brand new TV at full price. Maybe not always spend all your money at the bar or on this fancy food that you want to buy, whether it's in the restaurant or at the grocery store. Like, I have privilege, I recognize it, but I live in a humble manner. I buy stuff on sale even though I couldn't afford not to. I live and I self-sacrifice because regardless of where I am in my life, I want to make my son's life better than mine. Most people that I know, and that includes straight white males, because I know many of them, obviously, most people just aren't willing to do that, and then they bitch and complain that the system is unfair and this and that. And really, when it's, I don't want to say their fault, but they should hold themselves at least partially responsible for their success. That's the first big point, and I know that I probably turned off 90% of anyone who would watch this video by saying everything I just said. I feel the flames in the comments coming. I'll add a little bit more oil or gas onto the fire by saying that, in my mind, you shouldn't be trying to bring, as a person who feels a disadvantage, there are people much higher on the pyramid than I am, but I don't feel like it's my job and my only goal in life, and the only way that I can make my life better is by bringing those people down. I think that my job is to try to lift myself up. I congratulate those people on their privilege, but I don't feel that the best way to make everyone's life better is by bringing them down, trying to bring them down to my level, in big air quotes. Quite the opposite, in fact. And this relates to a point that I've made in another video in that series about how I think our future society should work, about living in 4 dimensions and all that. I'll try to put a card up there. But I think that this is only something that can happen if we as a society start to gain a little bit of maturity. We really need to grow up. And I'm going to segue into the more or less controversial points, I guess, or hopefully the more of a hopeful message, which is that I think what actually should be happening is the other way around. Uh-oh, Mistra's paws cold. Sorry, let me warm her up a little bit. Mystra, you okay? Oh, still no? Okay, wait, Mystra, let me use mine. See? Feel the pain a little bit. Take your hand out of your glove. Warm your dog's paw up. I just use the privilege that I have of being a human and being able to wear gloves and keep warm to help my less fortunate dog out. And that's my true hope for humanity. That actually was very convenient as a segue, Mystra. Thank you for that. What I think should happen is not the underrepresented or the underprivileged be trying to pull the privilege down. What should happen is those like me who have privilege should be trying to pull those underneath them up. And I hope you understand what I mean by underneath them. I mean less privilege. I don't actually mean underneath in the literal sense of the word, right? I hope you get the good intention of my message here and don't just hang up on 2-3 words and take them out of context. In the ideal society that I see, that's what actually would happen. People with privilege should stop using their privilege to oppress others and should start using that privilege to make others' lives better. And I think that that's something that naturally happens over time. Because when you think about it, being a straight white male is being in a privileged position from our point of view. But tell that to a straight white male living in Japan, that he's in a privileged position, and he will laugh in your face, right? That is not true everywhere right now. It's only true in our specific society. Also, if you look at things a little bit more four-dimensionally and you go back in time, think about how much privilege there is right now in our entire society compared to how many people were this privileged 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years ago in medieval times, right? There was only the nobles who were privileged. Being a straight white male back in the 1300s didn't put you in a privileged position. But because some people who were in those privileged positions managed to, pass laws and things like that, invent technologies, use their knowledge, and that's a big one, right? Technology and progress makes everyone's lives better over time. You can't expect everyone to always be equal. I think the best you should expect or strive for is to treat everyone equally. And there's a big difference between treating everyone as equals and treating everyone equally. I cannot be equal to whoever, how am I not thinking of any names right now? To Kobe, no, not, I won't use that name. He passed away. To LeBron James for playing basketball. And I shouldn't expect that. I am a 5'5" white guy. Yeah, I can jump really high for my height, but still, I shouldn't expect to be allowed to play in the NBA just because I think it's unfair that the tall black man is allowed to do it and not me. Alright? So, not everyone is equal. I think what we should aim for is to treat everyone equally. And then, over time, if those with privilege start to work towards making others' lives better, use your privilege to lift others up as opposed to push them down, that's when, over time, everyone's lives get better. And that's not an instant process, right? Taking Jeff Bezos' fortune and redistributing it, one to the same amount to every single person who lives in the US is not really going to help anyone out in the long term, because most people aren't mature enough. Sorry, I'm picking up Mystra business, and I don't want to break my flow like I normally do. So yeah, not everyone is mature enough to use that wealth in a mature way. Furthermore, if everyone has that wealth, anyone who has any knowledge of economics will understand that that's almost the same as no one having that wealth, right? Because everyone's purchasing power increases, so inflation will do its thing, and we'll be back to square one, right? But the point is that and that's my call to action. If you are a person who has privilege, first of all, recognize it. Second of all, use it to the benefit of mankind. And by mankind, I don't just mean people around you right now. I mean mankind, or humankind, I should say, to not offend snowflakes. That includes everyone who's coming in the future. So maybe that means just in case global warming and climate change are a thing, which they totally are, but let's assume that there's a chance that they aren't. Well, just in case that's true, maybe don't spend all your money on yachts and airplanes and on big, even as a middle class person, on big F-150s and gas guzzlers. Hey, maybe use your privilege to invest in companies that are future looking, right? That are working on clean energy, on new technologies, on that type of thing, on genetic medicine, whatever it is. Hey, that will benefit you because you're investing in a company that will likely return you profits, but also it's gonna make everyone's lives better, right? Why does everyone have a cell phone nowadays? It's because the rich, privileged bankers of the 80s were willing to pay $3,000 in 80s money, which is probably $10,000-$15,000 nowadays, just to have that big gray block that they could carry around with them. And that investment in that technology allowed the companies like Motorola and Nokia, who are developing it, to reinvest, make it better, make it cheaper, miniaturize it, and now everyone can get a cell phone literally for free with a cell phone plan. That's the power of investing in the future. And those people, they got benefits from their cell phones, right? They were able to close deals that they wouldn't have otherwise, blah, blah, blah. So it's to your advantage, but it's also to everyone else's advantage. So stop being selfish, stop being greedy, and by that I don't necessarily just mean give all your money away. But be smart about it, recognize your privilege, and try to work towards the benefit of everyone. And if we all work together, everyone can lift everyone else by the bootstraps. And that includes people who feel they are underprivileged in our society. I don't think you realize how privileged you actually are at the scale of current humanity to have been born in a first world country. I don't have the stats, but there's still people, a lot of people in the world who don't even have access to running water, let alone electricity or the internet. So just the fact that you're watching this video makes you a privileged person. You might not be as privileged as the guy next to you, just like I'm not as privileged as Elon Musk or whatever. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't recognize your own privilege. So if you are trying to bring everyone else down because you feel that they are privileged, you need to take a hard look in the mirror, my friend, and realize that you're also one of those privileged persons. Maybe you're not at the top of the privilege pyramid, but you're definitely not at the bottom. So, hey, stop trying to bring others down because it's, what's the word I'm looking for here? Oh my, how am I losing my English here? Well, anyway, I forget the word. I'll put it in the subtitles and brackets there. But it's when it's the pot calling the kettle black and not realizing it, right? So yeah, recognize your own privilege. Stop trying to bring everyone else down because you feel that it's unfair that their ancestors were of a certain color or that they were born in a certain place, and realize that the best way for everyone to make the world better is to pull others up rather than to push others down. That's my message. I hope it's not too offensive. I hope you recognize that I'm coming from a position of wanting to make the world better, not worse. But I'm just tired of being told to check my privilege, because everyone has a privilege. They just choose to ignore it because it doesn't suit their own agenda. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I expect a lot of flames if ever this video gets any views. But in the meantime, try to actually think of what I said and not just, listen to understand. Don't just listen to answer. On that note, have a good evening, and thanks for watching another episode of The Dog Walk.